I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Mrs. America After Show, Episode 6. Jill, very interesting. We're getting deeper and deeper into this insanity, this great show, but I cannot do this alone. I am your host, your moderator, Sean McHugh, a.k.a. big fan of Strong Woman. And I have with me, of course, some lovely, always bringing some wonderful insight, Miss Ashmin Ram. How are you, Ashmin?
I'm so good. Hi, guys. Hi, AfterBuzzers. Such an amazing episode to get into today.
Awesome. And of course, a sister to the sisters, my man, Cody Epperson. Hello, Cody.
Hey, how's it going?
So many things. Let's start overall thoughts. Ashmin, what were your thoughts on this episode?
You know, I really loved getting to the nitty and gritty of this entire series. I feel like so many things showed up in this episode. Like we see the stuff behind sexual harassment, like what an issue that has been. And in this episode, we actually really get to it. We start talking about it. And I loved seeing that surface because I think it's an issue that's kind of been alluded to throughout the different episodes, but we really see how much of it has been happening today. So all the inequality, the male dominance, and the females kind of playing more the secretary role. It was nice to see it unfold, and I'm glad it was being spoken of.
Awesome. Cody, what were your thoughts?
One, I completely agree with that. It is such a huge topic throughout the show, and to have it kind of magnified today was really, I don't want to say cool because it's not a cool topic, but it was good to put that in such a light. And I said it earlier, I was so excited to get into Elizabeth Banks' character Jill, and I just think her role is so powerful, and I loved her conversation she had with Phyllis and the whole thing. And then I just loved it. I really was into this episode today.
Awesome. I know so many things to talk about. It's hard to kind of keep it all in. So let's just get right into it. So it is called Jill. Jill, her full name is Jill Ruckleshaus, right? I think I'm saying that right, Ruckleshaus. And this, of course, is Elizabeth Banks, who up until now has been pretty behind the scenes, right? We haven't seen a lot of her. She's popped in here or there. So I'm with you, Cody. I was really excited to really see her come alive in this episode and just get, behind who this woman is. Because I wasn't sure we were going to. So I was excited that, this episode showed us that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it. So we meet her, right? And she's almost now the face of the Republican Party, right? She's been assigned this role. And Phyllis is not happy about this. So talk about that.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it was so interesting to see. It's almost like, Phyllis is obviously in the midst of this whole series. She's been battling the ERA and all these other ladies, and it's so interesting to see. Now all of a sudden, it's like her personal political turf is on the line, and she feels. In a way, she feels threatened by Jill and being the face of the women of the Republican Party, and I really liked it because it's because I really liked Jill's character, and it really shows it doesn't have to be, because especially nowadays it's so separated, and it's just people will fight with you just for being in a different party. But what I liked is that we see Jill, who is on this progressive front, but she's also is Republican. She is fiscally conservative, and she has all these facets to her, and so and I just think it gives her more of an edge over Phyllis, which I enjoyed.
Ashmin, what were your thoughts on Jill and the new introduction to her?
Of course. I really enjoyed seeing Jill's character, especially given the position that she's in. So she is the face of the Republican Party, but she has so much support from the liberals as well. So I really like her representation because she's on the conservative side, but I feel like she has such an equal balance amongst ladies on both ends. And I feel like the objective is the same. Like they're all trying to get a, like the ERA is about equality. So I love that she stands for that, but at the same time, she's not oblivious to one side or another. Like even when she encounters Phyllis, she totally knows like how to associate with her. She begins on like a commonality level and
Mm.
bringing up children's and kids and like, just kind of female conversation to almost feel her out and not just throw like Phyllis to the defense of the conversation. Like she's kind of like, let's talk woman to woman. Like I get we might have, difficulties in the subjects that we're looking at, but understand that I do know where you're coming from. And I think it worked for Phyllis as well because she was willing to sit with her, have a glass of wine, and chat a little more. So I really like how smooth she is kind of maneuvering through all the different people that are involved in this episode.
Nice. So we also have kind of like maybe our subplot for this episode. We have Bella who's trying to run for Senate, right? And then we also have Shirley, who's essentially starting the first Me Too movement, right? Like, which was very interesting for me because, we always think these things are new and like no one else has thought of this. It's like, oh, no, no, no. Shirley back then was trying to fight for these secretaries' rights. I was just hearing that literally on the application is, do you perform oral sex? Like, wow. You just think about like where we are today and like how all these guys are fired instantly. So Cody, talk a little bit about, this, and it's also for Bella, like she gets what Shirley's trying to do, but she also kind of sees a big picture, right? So it's like, she's kind of torn. So talk a little bit about all that.
Yeah, I think that it really is strange that she didn't just like jump on board with it. And I think maybe this is, I feel like I always tend to dip my toe into predictions a little too early, but I just think we might get a little more of why. I think might be a little, she might have a dark secret.
Okay. I like that.
I do, it was so interesting to, especially that it's like there are laws now that are like, you can't even ask someone anything remotely like that in an interview. So to like see it happening is just, for me, is just bonkers. It's like, I know it is a thing, it was a thing, it definitely still is a thing in places, but I was just like, oh my God, like that's crazy. And then to have Phyllis be like, well, I think these ladies don't you think they're asking for it? And it's like, Phyllis, no, this is not okay. You can't think like that. It was crazy.
Yeah. So Ashmin, as a woman, obviously you got two gentlemen here. As a woman, like talk a little bit from your perspective, like, because I don't think this has gone away at all. Obviously we've cracked down on it a lot, but it's only in the last couple of years that we've really cracked down. So, what were your feelings on this part of the episode?
Absolutely. Sean, I kind of loved what you said. Like, this just goes to show how far the Me Too movement actually goes back in history. It's like when the Me Too movement became verbal, right? Like we began to learn stories about like the old school actors and actresses that were like, oh, this was just a common thing that happened back in the days. Like it almost felt like there wasn't one person that didn't go through harassment at one point or another in its career. So for me to kind of learn it from the political perspective and dating back to history, it just kind of made sense about how long that this has been existing and how important it was for America just to have this discussion overall. And then just kind of, I think as a woman seeing that dominance, like obviously it was hard because it's like, all the women were just in this just inferior kind of role. Like they were secretaries, they were just known as objects. Like they just had no say. Their almost job was to look pretty and do whatever the men wanted to do. And there was that one conversation when all the men were together and they were kind of looking at that comic and one of them makes a comment like, how do you keep your secretary quiet? And one was like, oh, you put something in her mouth. Like, that's just so wrong, but it just goes to show how openly this stuff was discussed before, and why it wasn't really, known as a taboo, because the people of in power were able to get away with this. So I mean, I'm glad to even see Shirley begin to take a stand at this. Like, she didn't exactly have all the tools, but she knew enough that it was inappropriate, and if something had to be done. And Bella as well, like, I kind of get why she didn't just jump into the scene, but I feel like because she knows what she's doing, she's like, when I get into real power, then I'll get their asses out of here. So I feel like she's been in the game so long that she knows how to play it. But I feel like, make no mistake, once she gets it in that power, she's going to do something about this.
Well, the show does such a good job of of balance, right? And that you have someone like Shirley who is consistent with her character. She's like, I don't compromise ever.
Right.
So I'm going to do this. And then you have an OG like Bella being like, I get it. I appreciate your passion, but there's a game, right? We got to play in order. We can't do anything from the outside. We have to get in. So I really love that balance. I mean, she even makes that joke that her mom said, when I graduated law school, my mother said, wear a hat and gloves. That way they won't mistake you for a secretary. Like, it was such a great line. So she just gets it. So you're right, Ashmin. It is interesting though to see that, again, nothing's pure, nothing's just easy. Like, everything is complicated, everything has multiple layers. All right, so let's move on. So now our girl Phyllis does not like that she is behind, right? She's realizing that her kind of home front campaign is only going to get her so far. So what does she do? I love the fact that she was literally cold calling people from a payphone. Like, who does that? Wow. Cody, talk a little bit about this.
Well, it was so funny because I was like, why is she at a payphone? Like, what is she doing? Like, she has like a house. She literally has people in her house working there. Like, they have phones. And then I kind of remembered, I was like, oh, well, is she in law school now? And I think she's like, that's why she's on campus doing it. And then I also remembered, oh, it's the 70s, not everybody's got a freaking cell phone. So that's why she's on the phone, but she's calling everybody. And I mean, good for her. She's making strides to achieve what she's trying to achieve. And it was just, and then it was, but it was a rather comical scene. And then she has like a line of these law students behind her, like waiting to use the phone. She's like, I gotta go.
Yeah, like almost like, she's in a prison line, right? Everybody's like tapping their foot, like, let's go, get off the phone.
Yeah.
Great. I love it. I love it. So Ashmin, then we have, Phyllis kind of has this revelation. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? So she realizes that she needs to rally all these different sects of religion because we all have the same common goal here. And she's going to start this Eagle Forum, bringing all these different religions together. So then she goes to, she gets this mailing letter, right? Now, what am I trying to say? What is it? It's a
pamphlet.
Wow. Yeah, like a pamphlet or a newsletter. That's what I'm trying to say.
Newsletter.
Sorry. And finds out whose it's from, and it's from this lady, Lottie Beth Hobbs. So her and her team go visit Lottie. Ashmin, talk about this meeting.
That was such a funny meeting. Like, one, to Phyllis, I totally admire the way she gets things done. Like, this lady knows how to hustle and how to maneuver, right? Like, she organized, I mean, she knew that they needed another 40,000 people to join on board to make any noise. So one, just the way she's got her team organized and everybody reaching out to everyone. And so then they finally come across this like other group of ladies, right? And I just think it was funny because as much as, Phyllis tried to lure her in on her side, the other lady wasn't budging. Like, she was holding on to her mailing list, and she was like, listen, if we're going to get behind you, this is the contingency that we need. And obviously, she was very passionate about abortion and life. And it was just interesting to see, two women that kind of had similar beliefs, but they were also, it was hard for them to come together. And maybe it was because of their own beliefs or whatever that was. But I love the discussion around the rose. Remember when the rose came
Mm-hmm.
up and it
Yeah.
symbolized different things, and Phyllis and her group were like, oh, it was roses versus rights. Like that's how they seen it. And then the other religious group was like, well, roses is a symbol of abortion, like how they were like, metaphorically, this beautiful thing grows and then it's just kind of ripped off the stem. So I thought that was an interesting symbolic moment. But again, like Phyllis is so smart. She knew that the lady wasn't sold the first time around. She kind of observed her house. She's like, what is she into? How do I relate with her so she gets on board? And then, they go shooting. And Phyllis hits that perfect bullseye shot. And the lady's like, huh, like maybe
Right?
we're a little
So
bit more
impressed.
like, maybe we're a little bit more similar than different. And then I feel like she totally won her over in that moment.
Yeah, no, and it's funny because I was thinking to myself, Phyllis, you can't strong arm a woman who shoots her own deer. Like she is gangster. She's country gangster. Like she is not messing around. So I like that. Phyllis always trying to undercut people, right? It's like I think you could be on the board, and of course she says, I'll be vice president. So again, like you said, Ashmin, Phyllis, she's savvy and she knows that she'll try to take as much as she can, but she knows when she has to give, when she has to compromise.
Right.
Because, end of the day, for her, the mission is what it's all about. Almost. I always still think, for me, it's really all about Phyllis. But, it's we'll put this blanket of the mission over it. But end of the day, it's really about Phyllis. All right. So moving on. We have this meeting. Ooh, this meeting of Jill and Phyllis, which you alluded to a little earlier, Cody. But I want to really get into this meeting. This is a good meeting. Cody, you kind of talked about it a little bit. How Jill really kind of takes Phyllis in and really knows kind of how to play her. So talk more. Let's get into that a little more.
Well, yeah, it was so smooth. And she even, like, we see in a few scenes prior, she just drives by the protest and just rolls down her window and just looks at her. It's like, yeah, I'm watching you. And so then and then she bumps into her again at, I don't know what building they were in, but so they bump into each other and they go and have a drink together. And it's kind of like what you guys said, like she like found common ground, like talked about their kids. Oh yeah, let's grab a drink. It'll be so sweet and easy. And then even they're having a conversation. It was totally fine, but there were obviously like their little jabs here, and they're like, oh well, that's not how that is. It's like subject change, and then finally it just the way Jill just was like, we're done with this conversation, was like, if you want to get ahead on the shoulders of men, just know they're going to be looking up your skirt, which is like, was just so powerful. I was like, oh my God, Jill. But I mean, it sucks because it's true. Like it's such a horrible reality, but it was just like the way she like put it in her face, like, yo, like if this is what you're going to do, just so you know, this is what's happening. And it really was just such a cool scene to watch, to hear both sides. I mean, we hear both sides all the time, but to get this perspective from Jill and with Phyllis was really cool, because they're almost like two sides of the same coin. So it was really cool to hear them talk.
I love how you put that. That's a great way to put it. Two sides of the same coin, because I think you're right. I mean, end of the day, they're both Republican, and want those Republican values. Just different ways. I mean, it just shows you how, like, there's levels to everything. Like I was saying earlier,
Absolutely.
it's not just one thing. A Republican doesn't mean this. It can mean a lot of things. So Ashmin, earlier in the conversation between Jill and Phyllis, Jill says, my husband Billy used to say, we educate men and women through college to be precisely equal, but then the men go off and do the interesting things. Talk a little bit about that, because I thought that was a really great statement, and I mean, this is a theme for this show.
Yeah, I mean, I think it continuously keeps showing the inequality. Like, as much as it's like, yes, we both get to be college educated, But once that education happens, the woman's role is more like, be a great wife, become a great mother, become a great like homemaker. Whereas the men, they are really embraced to pursue their careers and make money and be the provider. So I feel like, by Jill saying that, she was really speaking the truth that yes, we have a right to education, but what that really means after we're done is a completely different meaning. And
Mm.
I feel like Jill was totally feeling out Phyllis, and but towards the end she just had it with her. Like that part when they came into Phyllis's statement, like Cody said, like she's like, well, I think the women that are going under this, they're inviting this type of attention to themselves. And she
Mm.
used the word virtuous. And she's like, this doesn't happen to virtuous women. And I feel like Jill had just had it with her by that time. And that's why she made that comment. She's like, if you want to step on men's shoulders to get ahead, just know that, underneath it, they're looking up your skirt. And I feel like as the episode progresses, we kind of start seeing Phyllis get into that uncomfortable situation. Like when she goes into that room and it's all those men there, like even for me watching that, I'm like, that looks really intimidating. Like it just looks
I was
really,
uncomfortable.
yeah, right? I was like, that looks so dominating. So I feel like, she's about to get a taste personally of what all these women are talking about, and she's so quick to judge other women. But I almost feel like she needs to feel this because she's like, oh, people are inviting it. She's not inviting it, but she's clearly sitting in that world where she's beginning to experience this.
Yeah,
So-
it's
Well,
funny.
she oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Cody.
She
Go ahead.
just it's funny that you bring up that she says like, oh, like virtuous women,
Yeah.
this doesn't happen to them, and that she does experience it later on in the episode. But really looking back, Phyllis has been experiencing it since episode 1. Like
Totally.
she's like the gentlemen are always putting their arm on her or kissing her on the cheek, and she really has been experiencing it. And I think deep down she knows that it's a thing, but she just feels that because she rises above the occasion or above the situation, that she's this virtuous person who it's not happening. But it really has been, she has been experiencing it since we've met her.
Totally.
Yeah,
I think,
oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
sorry, I was just gonna say, I think that's totally been Phyllis's character, right? Like you said, she's not oblivious to any of this, right? Like she has been
Mm-mm.
experiencing it since episode 1, but she keeps sweeping it under the carpet. And now even the same thing with her son. I mean, look at her in that confession moment.
Mm.
All that
Oh, yeah.
guilt, like she's aware of what's happening. So I totally agree. She's been experiencing it, and I think it's just coming more and more in her face now.
Yeah, well, I think I think you're both totally right in that, you know, Phyllis feels like she's kind of immune to it all. You know, if some way because she's really smart, so I'll just go and sit with the boys and I'll be one of the boys. And it's like, no. You are not one of the boys. We're because you've kind of, made some waves, we're humoring you. And you're not bad to look at, but end of the day, if we need to shut you up, we'll shove something in your mouth, right? Like, I mean, that's really what it is. And it's interesting that she has all these, she's so conflicted for me, because like you said, she has all these tells that are showing her what she's fighting against. And it's like, and in reality is like, you should be fighting for this. Like it's happening to you too, Phyllis. Just because you have a nice blouse and a nice house doesn't mean you're immune,
That rhyme made me giggle.
So, but and to Ashmin, to your point, and that scene in the confessional, to me, it just backs me up. It's like she made it all about her. Why did God put this in my heart and then give me this cross to bear? It's like, there's nothing to do with you, Phyllis. Like, this is your son. So it's very interesting to me the way Phyllis just is almost in a way oblivious, but then knows exactly what's going on at the same time. She's a conundrum. All right, so on to the next. So we go to well, first of all, too, we also have this kind of bicentennial celebration, like, kind of we're gearing up for underneath all this, which is very interesting to me because, that's 1975. That's the year of my birth because I'm the old guy in the house here. So to see that 1975, like this is what's going on is always interesting to me. Talk a little bit about the bicentennial and who's president. Like we have not Henry. We have Ford's president, and he's up for re-election the next year. So everything going on is very important in his new election, right? Cody, what do you think?
I don't know. I'm honestly not. That's one thing about this show, that I feel like it is teaching me a lot, and and I'm liking, because that's part of what the news is going to be about later on, is that it's the historical accuracy of the show. And so but we do see that. Actually, I don't think it's that I was, can you hear me stammering? I was a little confused at the end of the episode because I thought it seemed like Phyllis it seemed like women just lost in general. Like, because I know her, Jill's husband was going to be vice president, and then they changed their mind and went with somebody else. And so I might be straying off the topic that you just asked me, to be honest.
No worries. So that's actually a great topic I wanted to get into. So that's great. Let's go there. So Jill comes home, and after her meeting with Phyllis, and her husband is being vetted to be vice president. So, right, but she's excited. The only problem is she's his wife, and she's a little too outspoken. Ashmin, talk about that. That whole scene was very interesting.
That was a really interesting dynamic, because it's like when I seen Jill and her husband Billy, I was like, wow, they seem to have a really good balance. Like, they're both political people. I like the way he kind of had her back. He's like, I don't control my wife. Like, do your thing, be as big as you can be. And then when he gets kind of, put in the position of power of becoming a VP, like, as much as he wasn't trying to water her down, but at the same time, it was kind of like, for him to become more popular, she did have to slow her roll a little bit, because she was too outspoken for, like, the majority of, people in power, whether that was the men or however that was. But I just thought it was interesting that as much as he loves and respects her, he still was kind of asking her to do that. He was like, well, just until the election is over and we have like the official results. So I think that was just a hard place in general between, just even in a relationship and a couple. It's like, she wants her husband to win. She wants to support him, but she also feels really passionate about, obviously, the issues she's been a part of, and her representation in the community. But overall, I thought it was great, because at the end of the day, he didn't give her a choice of yes or no, and she did her best to accommodate herself and him. So I think it was handled well, and I don't think it affected the decisions as much as it could have.
Good point. Yeah, because of course they don't end up going with him. They go with Bob Dole. And it's funny because as soon as he said that name, I was like, oh yeah, that's the guy. That's right. So Cody, but during this whole time, like, right, we have Jill who wants to be on the floor with them with this whole ratifying for the ERA and the stop ERA, and she wants to be there. So she's literally on the phone, like telling them what to do, and they end up winning. So talk about that, like how she's handling the kids, the floor all at once.
It was honestly it was a really cool scene. Like, she's literally like, she is doing her job, which I'm sure was very stressful, but like, she's also like literally like phone on her ear, on her shoulder, while having a tea party with her kids. And it was just like, and it was very, I mean, now that we're talking about it, it was very similar. Well, I guess not so similar, but it's similar to what Phyllis claims to be doing, is that she's a housewife, but she also has this agenda. And, but also going off of what Ashmin said, is that it seems like Jill and her husband have a very good balance of supporting each other and letting each other fly free. And when we first meet him, he's the stay-at-home dad, and he's totally okay with that. But then once it flopped, it just changed. And then for her to be at home while all that was happening, like I felt her anxiety. I was like, oh my gosh, like she should be there. And it worked out in their favor, which was absolutely amazing. She was like, do this, do that, do this. Like Jill has it together and she knows what's going on.
Yeah, nice. And of course they win. So we have this interesting thing where Phyllis loses, and if you listen, I don't know if you heard, it was a very close vote. It was like 51 to 47. So they made an impact. They didn't win, but they made a mark. And Phyllis obviously caught the attention of Reagan's people, right? So they invite her to this final scene. Here, you're in the boys club, welcome in. And wow, was that a rude awakening, I felt, for her to really see that, like, yeah, we don't really see you as an equal. You're just kind of fun to be around for now. Ashmin, take a stab at some of that.
Definitely. I mean, like I said earlier, that scene was just uncomfortable. Like, she's the only woman in the room, and everyone's just like really looking just at her beauty, like just looking at her. Like, I didn't feel that they cared to really, and have a serious conversation with her. They were kind of like, okay, it's like they brought her in, but she was anything but an equal. And I feel like that was from anyone that was in the room. And no matter where she passed by, I thought it was interesting for people just to be so comfortable to like touch her shoulder,
Oh
lean
yeah.
close to her leg, like hang out around her. And another thing is, she's a married woman. Like, it wouldn't be right either way, whether somebody was single or married, but for the fact there was no additional boundaries with her being a married woman, I just thought it went to show like how these people in the room really didn't care. Like, they were so used to treating women like that it was no thing for them when another woman came in the room. And we really see her, getting more uncomfortable. It's like, again, she, from episode 1, she has experienced this before. Jill has clearly just spoken to her about this, so it's fresh in her mind. So if it's happening around her, she's like, she can't help human nature to say, wow, maybe this is what Jill was really talking about. And it was crazy, and I don't know what's going to happen out of that scene. Like, we can get into predictions when we're ready, but I really think that, I think Phyllis, is going to get uncomfortable enough that she realizes she has to do something about this, because she's experiencing it, and she might experience it more.
Awesome. All right, so we're running down here, so let's get into some news. Cody, take it away.
Oh, absolutely. So my article I got for today is from, oh, that is great, is from it's from the Star Tribune, and it was about, is Hulu's series Mrs. America more fictional than fact? A drama about the battle over the ERA mostly sticks to verifiable history. And so really overall they have done a very good job. Creator Davi Waller and her team of writers have said they conducted extensive research into the project. Like nearly all works of historical fiction, Mrs. America takes some liberties, particularly when it comes to private conversations behind closed doors, and it offers necessarily subjective take on highly polarizing figures such as Schlafly, whose family has been critical in the series. But when it comes to events in the public record, it hews close to the facts, often quoting feminist leaders and their critics verbatim. So I know, for like I was kind of saying before, is that I feel like this show is such a history lesson for me. And I was very curious how much of it is artistic or poetic license and how much of it is fact. And so it's nice to hear in this article that they, aside from romanticizing the family drama, they really are hitting the nail on the head, and they did a lot of work to make sure that people are getting the correct information and seeing this is what was happening and what still is happening.
Well, that's good to hear, because I always like when they use like real old footage as opposed to the fake old footage, because then it just, for me, it's like, oh, yep, that actually is the stuff from that time. That's awesome. Okay, awesome, good stuff. They're keeping it real, trying to keep it 100 on Mrs. America. That's great. All right, let's get into some predictions. Miss Ashmin, what are your thoughts?
Totally. Okay, so I'm going to take it from the last scene when, Phyllis is in that room. I think somebody is going to cross the line with her. She's going to feel it, and it's going to change her mind around some of these issues that she's been fighting so hard
Mm,
for. And I think we might see a little bit more of her liberalness begin to come out. And she's not going to be able to keep this facade up much longer for, kind of putting everything under the carpet.
awesome. Awesome. Cody.
Yeah, I completely agree with that one. I think Phyllis, not in 100%, but I think she's definitely gonna have. There's going to be a moment that's like the final straw, and she's going to have a huge change of heart. Um, I still think the whole thing with her son is going to be a big problem because I mean we even heard it with the gal she went shooting with. Like she called
Mm,
her or called gay people perverts. And I mean I'm just waiting for that to blow up in one episode. But and then what I was saying about um Bella, I think,
mhm,
um about the whole secretary thing, there was just such an odd moment there where she wasn't getting
mm.
on board with it, and it just seemed like she was kind of stammering around, like trying to like have a reason. And then afterwards, she kind of had this I don't. It was like her own secretary was looking into her office about the subject. So it was just like a part of me thinks she might be guilty in that, but
Mm.
I don't want to. Maybe I'm putting too much drama into it myself.
So are you saying like guilty by omission, you're saying? Or like by like kind of looking the other way kind of thing?
I think that maybe
Or she was a victim?
she fooled around with her secretary, or maybe she was a victim.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Or actually, you know what? I did think both. I stand by both those. I think it could very well be that because initially I was like, "Ooh, she seems a little guilty." I thought initially maybe she was like, "No, like because I'm part of that club." But at the same time, it would make a lot more sense with this show if she was a victim of this who doesn't want to speak out or have their name dragged through the mud like these other secretaries are nervous about.
Awesome. Awesome. For me, it's funny. I really love the more I see the character of Bella, the more I love her. I'm really hoping she wins the Senate and then gets to kind of finally, let her gangsterness kick in, you know. But she's really kind of slowly becoming one of my favorite characters because I just love how just grounded she is, and she knows, like we said before, she knows what needs to happen in order for things to move forward. She, although it is good to have these kind of bright-eyed, bushy-tailed people around her to remind her of things. I just think, obviously she's kind of the mother figure of this group. So I'm just hoping that she actually gets to get some power finally and do something. I don't want to look ahead. I don't want to read. I don't want to know. I like going on the ride. I'm a purist that way as far as the show goes. So we'll see what happens. But I'm with you, Cody. This Sun thing is just gonna, it is going to explode in a big way. And I don't think Phyllis is ready for it. We saw a little hint of it with the priest of how like she quickly kind of lost everything. And I think it's going to kind of be on an atomic level when this thing blows up. And it'll be interesting too. I think the dad is just going to shut it down. I don't think he's going to have any love for his son. I think he might even disown him when it all comes out.
So. She even says, she was like, "Oh, well, maybe you could study law in a different state and get a fresh start." Like she loves him, and I don't think she actually cares. It's just her morals versus what she actually feels in it, or what she's been raised to believe.
And I think for the fact she's such a public figure, right? Like she's thinking about the way it's going to affect her. Sean, kind of like you've said the entire episode, it's kind of always a little bit about her, right? So she loves him, and she's feeling her own guilt. But at the end of the day, like she is kind of like, if you need to leave and go somewhere else, feel free by all means, because she's made such a mockery out of standing up for these things that imagine it happening in her own home. So I think she's really concerned about the way it's going to affect her and her family.
Absolutely.
So Cody, I have a question then regarding all that.
Mm-hmm.
When she says go somewhere else to get a fresh start, is it essentially to go somewhere else where there are more people like you kind of thing? Or is it a thing of go somewhere else, reset and start over, and eliminate this from your person?
I think it's definitely a go somewhere else where you will be accepted for who you are. But
Okay.
I also think it's very much what Ashmin just said, in that it's also about, like, if you aren't here when this happened, when you go and be yourself, then it won't have as much of a negative back on the family.
Wow, that is like almost diabolical. Literally, like, well, this is what happens when someone leaves the family. They get corrupted by the liberals. Wow.
Because, like, I think she wants him to be happy, which is why, like,
Sure.
oh, you should leave, because if you stay here, you won't be happy. And
Right.
but there is also, I think, selfish intent in there as well.
Oh, 100%. Like I said, it's all about Phyllis. I was just curious if she actually, like, what she meant by that. That's all. I was kind of torn. I was like, does she want him to go to New York and then find some people, or just?
Well, her husband was like, "Oh, you're going to study to be a lawyer, and you can join my practice." And I think, and then after he walked away, she was like, "Or you could go out of state." And you know what I mean? I think she doesn't want to upset her husband, but she's putting that in her son's mind, like, or you could go and start somewhere else and, like, get away from all this, because
And the son looked a little confused too. He's like, what is mom really trying to say?
Yeah.
Right?
we're all confused.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think that is going to do it for this episode. Another one in the can. Wow. This show just keeps getting deeper and wider and better. And I'm just loving it. I got such a great team with me. Tell them where they can find you, Ashmin.
Totally. And I also want to thank our 7 people that have been in the live chat with us the entire time.
Oh, nice.
I totally want to encourage them to start a discussion with us next week. Like, I'm here, I'm looking, I'd love to incorporate their thoughts, but regardless, they have been watching with us throughout the episode. So thank you for that. And you can find me on Instagram at Insights by Ish.
Awesome. Cody.
I am also on Instagram. You can find me at Cody Epp, CODYYEPP.
Awesome. And yes, guys, please like, subscribe, interact with us. We love all that. We want to hear what you're thinking as well. And you can find me at SeanStar75 on the gram, Gorilla Suit Sean on Twitter, and also on the Run After show with the lovely A Diamond, who I just remembered we forgot to mention. A Diamond obviously not here today. We missed her. She'll be back next week, full of some awesome insight. And until then, we will see you. Thanks for watching.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.